Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield, the host of Manny Talks Shooting, and welcome to another episode. This is the shooting podcast where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you like this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Talks Shooting. And without further ado, let's get to this episode.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Manny Talks Shooting, the shooting podcast on the internet, because I don't do it in person. But listeners, thank you for checking us out every single week. I greatly appreciate it. Without further ado, let me talk about the title sponsor of the podcast. I don't have their banner behind me because I'm not at home again. But anyways, go check them out. GoFastDon'tSuck.net. Tell Bill Duda in your order notes that Manny sent you. But you can get your banners, you can get dry fire decals, you can get match jerseys, stickers, and hurtful memes that are pretty true on the internet. So go check them out. GoFastDon'tSuck.net. Like I said, tell him Manny sent you, and move on with your day. Without further ado, we will talk to the ringer of bill drills, Mr. Isaac Lockwood. How you doing, Isaac?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you for joining me on this evening. I know we've had some scheduling conflicts, but we've worked through it. So I appreciate your patience on that end.
Absolutely no problem. Yeah, it's been a busy schedule the last few months, but finally getting a break in the off season, so it's nice.
Yeah, well, at least where you live, the weather is pretty still warm in your off season, so you can actually like go outside.
True. It doesn't freeze up. It snows sometimes, but it's raining right now. But that's usually about the brunt of it. We just get rain, but we definitely get our share of good weather.
hmm Well, listeners, if you don't live under a rock and have seen a couple episodes of Shooting USA, you've seen clips of Isaac on there destroying stages and shooting really good bill drills. So, for the people who don't know about you, Isaac, who are you and how'd you get into shooting?
Well, Isaac Lockwood is my name, and I live in Northern California. So I always say when people ask me where I'm from, that's kind of the first thing. It's like California. How do you shoot? Fortunately, I live in the very northern part, so just south of Oregon, about 2 hours south, and north of Sacramento, and it's more rural and very red. I know the state's blue, but it's very red. So guns are kind of a way of life in my area for the most part. So yeah, I kind of grew up here and around guns. So I got into shooting though. I kind of always enjoyed shooting. The typical go out once a year, grab a gun off the tailgate, shoot a mag, and then basically I'm done with that gun, go to another gun for the most
hmm
part. Um, until about I want to say 7 years, 8 years ago. Um, yeah, started working or watching on YouTube, started watching like three gun stuff and some USPSA stuff. Didn't know anything about it, just saw that it was like competition and, guys going really fast, guys like JJ and Max. Casey Eusebio was on there. There's a show called, what was it? Hot Shots. There's
Yep.
Top Shot that everybody, everybody knows Top Shot, but Hot Shots is on YouTube.
hmm
And that series was actually pretty cool. I stumbled across that and, watching Jerry Michalek, and then there was an Archer guy,
hmm
Clint Upchurch for three gun. So I was more interested in three gun, and
hmm
but I started kind of getting some of the gear before I would go out a little bit more often just by watching that show. It got me out shooting more.
hmm
So I got like a shotgun, was setting that thing up and AR stuff.
hmm
Yeah, do so much in that realm. I was law enforcement at the time, but uh, but basically that's kind of was my interest. Then joined the local gun club, and it had USPSA, but it also had Tuesday Night Steel. So I shot Tuesday Night Steel, which I had. I mean, it was all pistol, and I'm actually a rifle guy. I wouldn't say I'm good at it, but that's just my favorite is rifles. So ARs, I just love them. But got shooting at the local club, Tuesday Night Steel, and then they had USPSA, so I started doing that shortly after, and got hooked. And haven't slowed down since.
hmm Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because I've also I loved watching Hot Shots. Right. I think I've watched it about 5 times on YouTube just because
Yeah,
it's some old history, right? Like Max
yeah,
Michel going shooting, winning the Triple Crown in what 2013, then 2014 winning the World Shoot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it was a great program. I wish that it was still kind of a thing, and I know another
Yeah.
avenue for media, but that was definitely a cool show.
It was one of those kind of, I mean, I don't know the exact politics, but I've learned more now that I'm fortunate enough to kind of like hang around and talk with Max and JJ, and those guys, kind of learn more behind it and what it took to get on it. So there's some interesting stuff there, but I don't know that I'll divulge some of the behind the scenes stuff.
Hmm.
Regardless, it was awesome, and it's kind of what spurred me into competition shooting. So
Right.
really appreciative of that, and it's still just it's the way they produced that and shot it. It was really interesting. I thought, and kind of our sport, well, USPSA, well, competition shooting in general. I wish I wish there was a way to have a live version that was more interesting to audiences than having to do something like that or Shooting USA. You know, the
Hmm.
Shooting USA does a great job. The hard part is it's just one is the location, the logistics of it,
Hmm.
and then two would just be how do you make something interesting when you have the top guys. Usually there's a super squad, but a lot of times they're all spread out, and so there's so many, especially at this point, especially if you're talking about carry optics. There's so many legitimate shooters that have a chance to be in that top 20 that would be fun to watch. That how do you cover all that? And there's just not a good solution at this point, which is unfortunate because I think there's a way to do it. I don't know how, but I know that I know there's a lot of us that would watch it as long as it was kind of digestible in the way they filmed it.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially like you mentioned, there's about 20, 25 guys who can fight for the top.
Yeah,
They're especially in carry optics. It's kind of hard to capture all that, especially with, the crews that they've got doing it. No, but John and his, like you said, John and his company, they do a great job trying to cover everything. It's just there's not enough cameras and not enough money and time to get everybody.
yeah, and that's what it comes down to money. I mean, how do
Hmm.
we that's what it comes. How does it? How do you get the sponsors? Well, first of all, you got to get the views, and if you're getting the
Hmm.
views, you get the sponsors, and if you get the sponsors, you got the money, and then everybody wins. But I don't have an answer how to do that. I've seen it done. I used to play disc golf, actually, kind of
Hmm.
funny, but I used to do that, and I watched that go from literally there was no coverage of it. There was one guy that would go out to the big events, and he would record the lead card like on the final day with his camcorder. And then he would put it on YouTube like a week later. He would edit it. And that just doing that, enough people watched it to where he got a second guy and then a third guy, and then he got bigger. He got better equipment. He did interviews, um, and then another company called Jomez Production with a J. Anyways, it's actually regardless if you play disc golf or not, you can go watch it. It's more fun to watch than golf, and I used to golf as well. But it's they do a great job covering it, and it went from no money, you can't make money, you have to live in your car and travel around if you want to be a tour player, to now these guys are signing $10 million contracts, and that was in a span of like 5 years.
For throwing plastic little discs.
That's right. That's right. I got out just in time, just in just in time when they started making money.
It's usually how it
But
goes, right? You get rid of it, you get all rid of your crap, move on to the next thing, and that's when it takes off, right?
yeah, but it really, I was kind of aging out because those are, I mean, they've got, the name of that game is pretty young, athletic kids that they don't have, you don't have to be strong physically to throw it far. It's more about it. Yeah, it's just physics and leverage. So those kids can throw, and they're really good at a teenage.
Hmm.
There's in their 20s they get better too, but I mean, it's highly competitive, and I was kind of aging out by the time, but by the time I turned close to 30, or I think I got out by the time I was like 29, 30. The old guys are in their mid 30s in that sport, and
Yeah.
they go. I mean, you can play it for pretty much forever because it's not really hard on your body, but to be highly competitive, um, it's just like anything. It's very athletic, and younger bodies kind of handle it better. Just they can
Mhm.
put more torque on their on their joints until you get too old.
Right. They don't need that bionic elbow yet.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so disc golf carts, Zuka carts are so big in disc golf. Did you
Yeah.
did you keep one before you went into shooting?
No, actually, I didn't. I had a different bag sponsor called Upper Park Bags that I still got a bag full of plastic. I sold. I had a bunch of stuff. I had, I was fortunate where I had a lot of sponsors in that too to keep, to do that. And that's what I learned from that is kind of
Hmm.
what I started when I started shooting. And after I would say 2 or 3 years of shooting USPSA for fun, I was
Hmm.
kind of like, hey, maybe I'll try to pursue this. I didn't plan to. I just wanted to be able to shoot better. Especially kind of getting into law enforcement. That's about the time I started, going that route, uh, where I just saw like, oh, this is a great skill to learn, and
Hmm.
competition's only going to make you better. So, no, I didn't ever get the Zuka, but I've seen them at matches, and I thought that was pretty cool because I saw kind of where that started.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you see them everywhere, and it's like, just think about all the money we would spend in stupid, like essentially what somebody would call stupid crap in like this sport. It's like it's a comfort of life thing, right? It's like it's the
Yeah,
wagons, it's the Zuka carts, it's the fans you'll see on the range. But I mean,
big
we could
umbrellas. Oh yeah,
you could spend worse money. I mean,
yeah,
but
oh yeah.
so I want to pivot just a quick little bit. What made you want to get into law enforcement?
Well, I've always had a high respect for law enforcement. Didn't ever grow up wanting to be a cop or anything like that. Mainly because I always knew the responsibility, kind of the I want to say pressure, but responsibility. I guess that's a good enough term that law enforcement has. My plan
Hmm.
was I wanted to go in the military early on, but um, met my wife at a young age. We met in high school, and then kind of decided early at 18 that she was who I wanted to marry and spend my life with. And I kind of had a career job. I was fortunate, fell into a career job at that time, very young, that paid well. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this. And then we got pregnant. And I wasn't gonna, I wasn't gonna join the military, get deployed or something. At that point, I was just like, no. And then, I've had lots of life changes, lots of career changes, but the law enforcement thing was mainly one. A buddy I go to church with, he was a sheriff's deputy, and we'd always talk, obviously every Sunday when we saw each other, and he would tell me stories, and obviously cop stories are pretty. They're cool, but they're also pretty funny because you see you see all the stuff you can't even make it up. It's just
Hmm.
there's so many situations where it's unbelievable, and yeah, you kind of have to be there to actually believe that this stuff could happen. So he would tell me those stories, and it was awesome and laugh, and then he was always like, dude, you should apply, man. You should go work in the jail, and they'll see you're a good dude, and they'll pull you out to the streets. And so after about a year of kind of wrestling with that, talking to the wife, I just had that. It's a stereotypical calling, I guess. I saw
Hmm.
my I saw things getting worse in where I live, more homeless, more crime, and it was like I would complain about it, but then having kids, I'm a big proponent of if you're going to don't complain about something unless you're willing to do something about it. So I wanted to emulate that and just kind of had that stereotypical calling. It was just eating at me like maybe I should do this, maybe so I did. I applied. It helped also that the I think the opportunity was better than what I was doing at the time. I went through
Hmm.
some rough times job wise, and so pay was going to be a little bit better, and obviously retirement and insurance. So it was kind of like, okay, well, let's do this. So jumped in, and it kind of went just the way he said. Started in the jail, uh, and after a year, if that, I was told that I was selected to go to the streets. And then it took about another 6 months before I went to the academy, and then the academy, and then hit the streets. And then during the academy time, that's kind of when I was already shooting at that point, and that's when some other sponsors picked me up because I was still shooting locals, not really any majors. I think I made like two majors, two area matches, and I took third and CO in both of those. Um, so got a little bit of, it helps like when you're standing next to Nils on the podium.
Mm-hmm.
Other sponsors like, who's this guy, So I think that helped me, and then was able to, fortunate to pick up like Targets USA was one of the first. Gray Guns then picked me up. I had a couple local sponsors, like a local gun shop, and then my buddy Mike, he had an ammo company called the Cartridge Family, or TCF Ammunition. So he's helping me with ammo, loading it all, and a few other people. It's Jerky, and those are all kind of local sponsors that still help me out. Uh, they want to be a part of the journey, um, and and then like I said, Gray Guns, Targets USA, the Shooters World Powder, those sponsors, uh, one way or through various avenues. Uh, Kind of we hooked up and talked, and then Henning Walgreen with Henning Group, and just kind of started snowballing a little bit. So yeah, I've been very fortunate, and then it just kind of applied what I learned being sponsored with disc golf, learning what kind of, it's a hard thing is a lot of people ask, no matter what it is, how do you get sponsored? And then the biggest thing is, and for anybody who's interested in watching this, is I find out they what they want. It's not just about selling; it's about you using a product that you actually like and believe in. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of my first thing. Is like all my sponsors is less about what they, there's a couple things. It's got to be a good product. If I don't know anything about them, I just want to try a product just like anybody. I buy it. I go try it. If I like it, because there's been plenty that I've tried that they're not for me. I don't like it, whether it's the quality or just it's just not for me for what I'm looking for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's something you like, just do something like this, or do on your social media. That's the biggest thing. That's big. If they see it, tag them, and you just say what you like about it. Even say what you don't like, but just be true to yourself. Be true to people. Kind of see if you're selling something versus if you actually like the product. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of applied that. I know I'm not good at it, or I'm not great at it by any means, but I mean, I guess it was enough that I was just using it and saying, hey, I use this. These are the reasons why. This is what I like about it. And then if there's a better product, if you're not sponsored by it, I try the other products, and even if I am sponsored, I'll try other products, and I'll tell my sponsor, hey, have you looked at this? Can we do something like this? Because they
Mm-hmm.
want to get better too. So they're kind of
Right.
having that conversation and just being real. You don't have to, you don't have to, I guess, force it on people. If
Right.
you're using if you're using something you like, say if you like Dawn soap, I mean, shoot, you just talk about, hey, I use it because of this, it gets out the stains, whatever, it works for me, and this is why. And then
Mm-hmm.
people kind of pick up on on that versus like, the fake commercial. Say what you think they want you to say. They just want you to be real.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of kind of commercials, well, I mean, I've been, as you mentioned, Henning Walgreen with Henning Group, right? The T900, right? You know how many reviews really there are on the internet for that? Like two, and that's one is yours, right? So, you showed the product off, and I've been looking at the T900s forever, right? Like, I just could never bite the bullet and decide to go buy one, right? But it's like these cool videos. No one really talks about it in a good in-depth way. And you show it off pretty good in that video you did. I think it's on probably your Instagram or in probably YouTube. I think where I found it was YouTube.
Yeah,
But you show the product off, and it's like between your video and talking to my buddy Tom Castro, it's like I need to break down and just buy it, right? Like, and I can't complain about it other than like one thing, and that's when I tried to use DAA dry fire mags with them. They don't stick because the
oh
metal in
yeah,
the dry fire mags has chintzy cheap pot metal in the middle of them, and they don't stick to the small magnets. Now, but if you used a
yeah,
big magnet, like a double alpha magnet, sure, it'll stick because it's a freaking UFO saucer. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's
Like one of
it.
these.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I love it. Like he sent me one to try, and it was kind of one of those things where it's like, this could be really cool, but really, will it actually be helpful, right? Like, will this actually make it to where, you know, more efficient and consistent, or is it
Mhm.
just gimmicky, and really we didn't know. He was already testing it for about a year, and I loved the idea because it just, I mean, that's pretty cool. Now you don't have a restriction. If it works the way you think it's going to work, then you don't have to, like, for me, I would always have to like hip hinge to pull up my mag. I
Mhm.
guess, I don't know. I probably did it more than I needed to, but I wanted to make sure I cleared to be consistent. And so he sent me one and I tried it, and you have to put the reps in. It's just like anything. If you change gear,
Mhm.
it's different. So the, for me, like, well, here's my USPSA belt. I also have my IPSC one that I built recently, but I was running two, my first and second, but I went to one because I almost never got to my second, and I did knock it off sometimes, being very aggressive around walls or something like that. But usually I'm reloading. You know, most of the times I'm reloading. I haven't really had problems with it falling off in the match. Or let's just say this: it's never fallen off at a key moment.
Mhm.
The second one has fallen off in the match, but this first one, I don't know of a time where it's fallen off before I've used, or unintentionally. It was always seemed to be the second one. So I just kind of went to, I just modified it and just put, it's actually precision holsters, but mag pouches. But I just threw those on, so that's the rest of them. But
Right. Yeah, because they still use the Henning, the T900 Backer. They just have a
yeah,
different attachment point.
yeah, and he has different. I mean, it'll take different backers, but yes, I don't know if you can see it, but yes, it's the T900 uh, hanger
Mhm.
for those pouches, just the same one. It's just a different kind of attachment that they use, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's very versatile. But what I found out just in putting the reps to it, that yeah, I got rid of that hip hinge, so now and you can position it exactly where your hand goes. So I just keep my elbow at the same spot and drop my hand from the gun, and then I just positioned the mag exactly the way my hand was, so it didn't have to do any turning of my wrist or anything. It just comes straight down to the mag, and that's how I position it. Some people prefer it more out, more sideways, but whatever you want, you can literally do. You can make it work for you. What's the most efficient, most conducive for what you do. So once I kind of, like I said, once I put the reps in, the slowest part is letting the mag drop. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I was smacking my finger so much. Like I always had a purple pointer finger on my left hand from hitting the bottom of the mag because it was too fast. So I've actually had to get better at, as soon as I'm going to reload. I had to get to that that mag release sooner. I had to get better at that because now the slowest part is that mag dropping, clearing out of the way before I can get the other mag in. So it's really a great product. It's for reloads. I mean, yeah, you can. Guys, it's up to you. There's not a faster way to reload, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Off of,
Well,
off of
and even
mag.
with my short time of using it, I've probably used it maybe a month now. But it's like, yeah, there's no waiting. You just pop it, just pops off, and you're ready to go. And I love the fact that you can really truly adjust the whole pouch while it's on your belt with the tools.
Yeah,
You never. It's super simple, right? So you can really adjust it. It's not like you got to take your belt off to like tweak it or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I actually never thought. You're right. That was always a pain when you would adjust them. You'd have to take your whole belt off, make a little adjustment, put it back on. Does this feel right? But there was, to be fair, outside of the Henning hangers, there's really not a lot of adjustment hangers for pouches, anyways, out there. So you kind of can just, I think you just have cant.
Hmm.
That's about it. Double alpha, I think they have one where you can kind of move it around a little bit more. And actually, every company is following suit to what Henning's doing at this point. Even I saw the Boss Hanger. They came out with looks like a great system.
Hmm.
They kind of so that it's kind of a ball system, where it can pivot. Just probably do all the things are very similar to Henning, um, but Henning came out with it first, and then they even added the pads on the bottom of that Boss hanger that digs into you. Because I used to run the Bosses myself until Henning's T1000,
Hmm.
and it's kind of funny. It's just it's a good innovation, and that's kind of what drives the whole shooting world is. I think the way I see it now is like competition drives the shooting world more than anything, and it's like, why aren't we bigger? We're
Right.
kind of, we're the kind of the stepchild of shooting in a way, because it's all about veterans, and which is great, but it's they don't they cut they're stuck. I think they would innovate more, but they're restricted by they're forced to use whatever the government supplies. Same with PD or law enforcement. Law
Hmm.
enforcement doesn't matter how good a product is it's what's on their policy, and that doesn't change very often.
No, it takes
So,
a million white papers and government funding to change anything.
right. So that being said, they don't innovate, and when they do, or they don't, they probably do. They do innovate in some ways. They can talk to gun manufacturers, or what the needs are. But the reality is it's tested and kind of all starts in competition, and then once it becomes something that's valid and can hold up, then military and law enforcement start looking at it, and it's a decade later.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, they were shooting red dots in the or before the '90s or something, in
Yeah,
competition, and then of now, after what, 2013 maybe or 2014 is when they finally decided to put red dots on pistols. Like,
yeah, yeah. Our agencies up here just switched to it last year.
hmm.
One was 2 years ago, and then the other two agencies in my area um, was last year. Yeah. So it's crazy that excuse me, it's crazy that it takes that long to make changes. It's just the nature of it. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate because they could for a job that requires you to carry a firearm and take that risk and liability. You would think they want the best, and they do. They
Hmm.
want the best, but there's so much, bureaucracy,
Hmm.
bureaucracy and paperwork, and that's what kind of stops everything. It just kind of sucks that you know they're
Hmm.
they're always they're always going to be behind. It's like 2011's. 2011's been around for how long, and now
Yeah.
they're just taking off in law enforcement, and because of that, now we have. Well, I think that with Staccato, Staccato has done a great job with pushing that out to law enforcement and getting agencies to notice it. Now it's huge, and that's kind of what created, or I personally think that's kind of what drove the limited optics to be something for USPSA because of Staccato and law enforcement. To get them. So not just law enforcement. Once military law enforcement does something, then kind of the I don't want to talk down because I was there too, but the lower level, um,
Yeah, the
and
general populace kind of
yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah, that like guns, like to shoot, but they're not shooters. They just go out like I did, with just grab something off your tailgate, shoot a mag, and then change the next gun. But
Hmm.
that's what they follow that regime. So they're also at least a decade behind as well. But they become so popular now. I'm glad we have LO just to bring them in so they can shoot their 2011 9mm with the dot on it. That's what
Right.
people want to shoot. I'm all for it as long as it can. You know, we just have to keep being open to the growth. Where is it going? And
Right.
it's
Well,
not just about money. It. I know it's USPSA always gets a bad rap about the money portion of it, and reality is like we all benefit if we continue to grow shooting sports. So wherever the population is even if it's kind of against what we think is best, as as I'll say, higher level shooters are more, uh, we're less ignorant to what works and what doesn't because it's probably already been tested. But if the general population says that, you know, that Glocks are best, and they all want to bring their Glocks, and maybe so just say we didn't have a division that a Glock fitted, we'll
Hmm.
create a division for it so we can get all the general population in to shooting sports. That's a benefit to everybody. So, and then
Yeah.
they learn.
Yeah, then they get to really learn. But as you kind of mentioned, military and law enforcement kind of doctor, it's all about kind of budgetary things too. And then you mentioned kind of Staccato there, bringing it into like the general population slash military law enforcement side. It's like, they had to get over the price, the fact that a Staccato was more money than a Glock. First of all, when they had to buy them, because it's like, military, law enforcement Glocks probably cheapest gun they could ever buy, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
now they're buying the Staccatos, whatever they wanted to run. But it is good to see, right? They're buying better high quality firearms, and the general populace. Like there's some people coming first time into the sport shooting LO with a Staccato. I didn't think
yeah,
I'd ever own like a 2011 as my first pistol coming into shooting anything, right? It's like
yeah,
like the whole dogma change, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go buy the Staccato. I'm like, that's great. I like my first gun was a Glock 19, like probably a lot of people, and it's like,
yeah,
and you didn't know any better because that's what the back when I got into firearms, that was the hotness, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. I kind of dog on Glocks a lot. I had like 7 at one time, and I have 0 now. But I still, like, I tell everybody, for a first gun, you know, I'm not going to try to talk somebody into a fancy, for a first gun. It's like, get something that's cheap that works. Well, Glock is a perfect starter gun, kind of, because it's going to run for them, and
Hmm.
it's cheap, so the price is right, and it's readily available. So, and everybody knows it. So, great.
Hmm.
Start with that and see where you go, see where you want to go. But more than anything, it's like, I, I, I'm all for, how do we draw more people to it? How do we keep people shooting? Because once they get into, I don't know about all the shooting sports like three gun. I haven't been a part of that, or other divisions, but as far as USPSA and that scene, once people get into it, as long as they can check their ego that they're going to be beat, they're going to get destroyed the first few times they come out until they understand the game and get better, because they will get better. But if they can check their ego, like I had to, is like, you're you're going to stay because it's fun for one, but it's the people. There's just there's not a better caliber of people, no pun intended, uh,
Hmm.
than in shooting sports, from all the hobbies I've had. And I've had a lot, I've a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. And it seems like, man, these shooting sports just brings out the type of people, at least I want to be around, that would give you the shirt off their back and help you out. And like, their support, like, all the way to the top, from the C shooters all the way to, the JJ Ricazos, the Mason Lanes, these guys. I mean, I'm very fortunate because I can speak to kind of all the different levels, and I've been helped along the way. I've not done this by myself by any means. I've been fortunate to where all the way at the top, literally, I got guys like Nils, Mason, those guys are literally reaching out to me and trying to help me get better to beat them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They're like, hey, I'm seeing, you're dropping, first of all, they're awesome. They're not trying to be like rude or anything. They're just asking me, hey, you mind if I give you a hand or something? I'm like, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I noticed you're dropping your gun from this spot to this spot, and if you just keep it up, you're going to shave some time, and just little tips like that, right?
Hmm.
And stuff that I'm watching my own video, and you think I would catch certain things, but I'm not necessarily looking at that. I'm looking at like footwork or something, and I'm just missing the simple stuff sometimes, as I'm sure a lot of us do. It's always good to have somebody else looking at your stuff because they're more objective. Uh, but yeah, and I cannot believe how good the quality of people are in shooting sports, all the way from the bottom to the top. Everybody has their turds,
Hmm.
because that's just the way it is. But we have, I think, the least amount percentage wise.
Right. Right. Well, we wouldn't do this sport if it wasn't the fun community and the drive to be better. There's a lot of us in this sport who call it a sport, right? Who do want to get better, but then there are the hobbyists who do enjoy it. But no matter what, if you're on a squad of people of hobbyists or people who think it's truly a sport, you can't have a better fun, right? Like everyone has
Yeah,
fun going to these things. It's time away from the family. I mean, some people do bring their families with them, which is awesome because they get to enjoy it together. But it's like it's truly a fun sport with good people, right? There's hardly any bad eggs in the bunch, and it's always a good time.
absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of, that's like I said, if we can get more people to come experience that, they're going to stay, you know. And so, how do we do that? I don't have the answers. I know anything I say to express opinion wise, it's going to be from the mindset of what's what's best for everybody, not necessarily just what does Isaac Lockwood want to see change. You know, it's really more like what's going to keep more people wanting to come in and try shooting. You know, and that could be
Hmm.
3 gun too. I don't care what, you know, what shooting sport or shooting clays or whatever it is, whatever helps bring and invite more people, the better off everybody is. So it's kind of like the bill drill challenge thing with John. That's uh, the biggest thing is, you know, getting the support to help legitimize it as far as like the top shooters, which they did. They came over, a few of them came over and shot the bill drill challenge and took that, knowing that that's not their thing, knowing that they're not going to shoot the times that like Billy and I are shooting and some other, you know, speed ninjas out there. And they're the best in the world, but they know that they're not gonna put those times up, right? They still came over because they know the value of them being filmed, shooting that build show challenge is gonna help legitimize it and further it for more people to see. People just like people just love to see peak performance of any sport, no matter what it is,
Hmm.
and we like to see things go fast. That's why we like racing. You know, that's why we like everything. Jets, everything that goes fast, we like it.
Hmm.
So shooting's no different. So it just helps bring more eyes because it's like, oh, who's that? You know, who's this guy that just shot faster than, you know, I don't want to name names, but you know, we had some big names shoot it. Just, you know, one, they're competitive by nature, but two, also they know, you know, they've never shot in like the 1-2s, you know,
Hmm.
and but they're going to give it a try, see how fast they can go. Maybe they get in 1.5. Like Max called his, he called it. He said, I can shoot about a 1.65, and that's all I got. And he goes up, and I think he shot exactly a 1.65 or a 1.64,
Hmm.
and that was great. But he did it to, you know, he knows maybe he doesn't have a chance to win it, but he knows it also helps attaching, you know, a guy like his stature, his name to it. You know, people are going to it just further legitimize what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I noticed what at Handgun Nationals the target was a little bit different this time. They didn't have a head box. It was
Yeah,
just the torso.
that is correct. So yeah, so the first year when it wasn't like Shooting USA wasn't a part of it. Let's just say they did film some of it, and he came over and filmed some of my runs on like the second day. He wasn't there for my winning run, but fortunately, I had Jordan from Gray Guns filming it and was able to capture it, which is kind of a funny story in its own. But uh, I won that based on alpha in the head box. So my
Hmm.
first shot off the draw, you know, as the gun's coming up, the nose is a little bit higher as you're coming up to level out. And so
Hmm.
I've shot high before. Like that's a kind of a common thing when you're going at that high speed. You're kind of shooting as soon as you can see your sights on the target. So it's not something you're calling every shot. It's something you're trying to see your first shot to the middle, and then you're trying to hold it in. All you can do is slightly steer it while you're pulling the trigger, but that's about it. So my first shot actually was high, and I don't shoot until I can see the dot. So as soon as I
Hmm.
see that dot, I'm pulling the trigger, and sometimes I'm not even fully extended. So, yeah, the nose was a little bit high. Got the head box, and then the rest in the lower A, and yeah, that's how I won that one, which was
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it wasn't controversial because it's an alpha, but
It was a hard alpha. That was a harder alpha
yeah,
than normal.
yeah, it wasn't. I've never said that was not a planned thing. It wasn't called like it wasn't. I called that in the head and then put the rest in the body. No, it was nothing like that. It's just running at that highest speed. You're taking what you're getting. Hopefully, you have a good index off of the draw because the draws are, I think, they're for me typically, at least on these last ones, are in like the fives or low sixes. And if I'm warmed up, I can go in the fours pretty regularly. But
Hmm.
but I don't know. I think that was probably like a five something draw. So from the start of the beat. So uh, that's how I won the first one, and then the second one, Billy won
Hmm.
at CO Nats, and he won it with a 127 with his first shot in the head. So, and what's funny is he and he didn't give me a hard time, but I know he was kind of. I don't think it sat great with him that I beat him at the first one with a headshot bill
Hmm.
drill. um, so he was, obviously because he did all his in the proper A zone, the body A zone. Um,
Hmm.
and then he ended up winning with a 127 with one of the head box. But it was like, hey, you know what? That's the game. And so we rectified that. Going forward, we're going to get rid of that head box. And actually, we're probably going to come out with a bill drill target. So I don't know what that's. We're still talking about that to
Hmm.
see what that should look like. Should we stay with just the A zone old size, or should we make it like a C zone? Uh, who knows? We'll see. I know we're going to try to. It's not going to be like a humanoid,
Hmm.
because if we want to go with like television, television doesn't like humanoid targets. So we'll probably come up with something that's less humanoid, and we'll see what it looks like. I don't know. We'll collaborate and figure out if it's going to be if we want to see faster time. It's like we want to have that accuracy, so we don't want to lose accuracy at that speed. And it's only 7 yards, so it's not like we need to, make it. We don't need to make it huge, but maybe just a smaller C zone, or maybe just a C zone size close to it. And if it's anything in that, then I think we'll hit down in the one teens and chasing that 1 second bill drill. But was the fastest one I've ever seen. Um, Official is from Jerry Miculek, and it was like a 111, a 111 bill drill, but it was on a big. I don't know how big the piece of steel was. I know that John was there. He recorded it. I forget how big he said, but he said it was a big piece of steel. So it's like it's every bit as big as our full size USPSA targets, piece of steel, and it's
Hmm.
just anywhere on the steel it counts. So in that case, he was able to do a 111, and I think we can get down to 111s even just with the A box. I know I've done faster than that, all alphas, but in practice, nothing official, as well as Billy. But it would be interesting to see if we went just like a C zone size, so that way kind of have some leniency on the spread to really get those draws down, because get in the 1.4s, and then see how fast we can go, because I think people hitting anything at that speed is it's I think impressive to most people anyways. At the
Well, if you
highest
think
level,
about it, go ahead.
I just say at the highest levels, everybody wants to see alphas, which of course, and I
Hmm.
agree. But again, I look at it from like what can bring more people into shooting sports, and it maybe opening that up just a little bit, so you can see the fastest speed that we can do. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Show the bleeding edge of accuracy and speed. You know, that's always something super impressive, right? Kind of relating it back to hot shots, right? Max Michelle always taking talking about a high rate of speed. I can always remember those phrases in his head. But no, like if you think about it, most people in the time it takes you to do a bill drill, people can't even get the gun out of the holster that fast, right? I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of people who just like you're done shooting 6 shots, they haven't even got their hand on the gun to shoot. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not alone. Everybody loves the bill drill. It's like,
Mhm.
it's one of those drills that, is just kind of like a staple. I mean, worldwide, I still get videos that either I'm tagged in or they send me, from the Philippines or uh, from Turkey, from shoot, where else? Oh, there, Ukraine. That's
Mhm.
what surprised me. There's some guys in Ukraine that train regularly, and they'll send me their bill drills or the 4x4. Um, but people just everybody loves it because it gives you an opportunity to kind of showcase what is your absolute limit. And it's very simple. That's the other thing. It's very simple, easy to digest, and everybody knows what you're doing. Um, single target, stand and deliver.
Mhm.
So, but not to downplay, I enjoy actual shooting USPSA, uh, stage planning and execution, more than a bill drill. But I've always, like everybody else, I've always enjoyed the bill drill, and I'd always kind of end my practices on something fun, because a lot of my practices to get at a high level, you make them very difficult and kind of force yourself to be frustrated and grind. By the end of the practice, it's, you know, I want to have fun, and I'm not having fun usually in my practices because I'm not. I've got them as difficult as I can make them, and I'm not being. I have a very low percentage of success in my practices,
Mhm.
so I usually end it with whatever I got left in my mags. Whether it's 2 or 3 runs with a couple bill drills, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what I've always done. So it's just kind of started getting faster and faster, I guess. Then once I went to the scoop draw, I'm fully committed to that. Um, that obviously, that's kind of the key to a fast draw is the biggest key to a good or a fast build bill.
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to divert a little bit back into talking about USPSA a little bit. You started shooting USPSA right before, kind of before you got into the law enforcement stuff, on the streets and stuff. Um, and you found it via the videos. How long did it take you from starting out to kind of figuring the game?
Well, I'm still figuring out the game. Honestly, there's there's so much to it with, I mean, it is simple formula hit factor. So I would say I'm still learning it. I can't look at a stage and tell you what my hit factor should be, as whereas the top guys, they seem to be able to do that. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to go as fast as I can and shoot alphas. But to really get an idea of, like, I guess once I turned grandmaster, it was before I made grandmaster. Um, it was kind of learning how to be comfortable moving and blending the targets. That took me about, I want to say 2 years. Like two
Hmm.
years, my first 2 years of kind of just anything on paper. I didn't care. I just shot two, and if there was two holes in the paper, I was happy. Uh, to realizing, okay, I need to shoot each target for what it is, and that took me about 2 years to kind of figure that out. And then the process of getting good at that is a longer process. That's still something we're always chasing, is shooting the targets appropriately, the appropriate side picture, whatever. Everybody kind of has their own terms they call it, but basically it's all about points. It's, points divided by time. So the number one factor is points. You have to earn points no matter
Hmm.
what the time is. If you're not earning any points, it doesn't matter. So you've got to have that accuracy. I started on the other end, actually, so I was always focused on my time. It's like,
Hmm.
what my time did I be? My local buddies, they were fast, right?
Hmm.
They were like A's and master level, and I was always just chasing them on time because I knew I couldn't beat them. So that's what I look at. What was my time? Oh, I was 16 seconds. What were they? 17. I'm like, I win. But then they'd always beat me.
Hmm.
I got through the stage faster. Did I hit anything? No. But I didn't care at that point, you know. It was when I started beating them on time where I realized, and they were still winning, that I realized, well, I if I can beat them on time, then if I just get my hits, I can beat them. So that's what shifted my focus um, to, what do I need to see, and adjust my practices accordingly to this is what I need to see on this target, or a difficult target versus, a point and shoot target.
Right. Yeah. And even to that progression, right? So from that point, how long did it take you to start winning your locals to then winning major matches to being then in being contention to win, larger area level matches?
Probably just in like another 2 years.
Hmm.
Um, and that's, I mean, I would say it's less about time, as far as like years or anything like that. I
Hmm.
think it's definitely more about how, just like anything, how bad do you want it? Because you're going to have to put in the work.
Yeah.
So it is still time, but it's like it's going to require you to dry fire. It's going to require you to practice and train live fire and doing drills and also moving, finding your deficiencies and working on those until they're not deficiencies,
Hmm.
um, or at least at a level where it's competitive. And so I, uh, that was kind of my outlet. So it started like when I started shooting, that was kind of my outlet during like the time when I started watching Hot Shots. We were going through some major stuff with my family, with my son was diagnosed with cancer, and so having having that going on, me sneaking out to the range every once in a while, like once a week, whenever I could. We weren't dealing with something major with him being sick or something. Going out to the range and shooting a gun just helped. It was kind of my outlet, and that's
Hmm.
how it started. Well, with uh, being law enforcement, the stresses that come with that, and then just more life stuff. We've had some other major diagnoses in my family with type 1 diabetes, and if I list them off, it's very depressing. But we're on the good side of a lot. So we have
Hmm.
like 5 autoimmunes in my family. I've got 5 kids, um, and then my wife. But yeah, we've got a lot of medical.
Hmm.
But shooting was always that outlet. So going into the garage when there was time, or I'd work graveyard, I'd get off work, and then they would be in school. I'd only get a few hours of sleep, and then I'd wake up, and they'd still be in school. So I'd go out, work out, and then dry fire. And that was an outlet for me, cleared my head. So I'm just focused on what I'm doing before I go to work and focus on other things. Uh, or at home with the kids when they get home, that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
it's always kind of been an outlet. And then this last year, or year and a half, I've been fortunate to where it's kind of shifted, to where it's it's almost a job, but not in a bad way. I still enjoy it and love it, but now it's something. It kind of like you mentioned, that transition from you know winning some majors and stuff to moving to the highest level in our sport, being able to compete with those guys, and seeing, shooting next to them and with them.
Hmm.
It's it very, very humbling. And just because, I mean, at least with my journey, you go from watching them on YouTube, fast forward 5 years, and now I'm in their squad, and
Hmm.
it's just, I don't think that happens. I mean, it happens, but I think it's very rare. Like it'd be like, a kid out of high school, watching NBA, and then 5 years later after college, he's in the NBA and playing with those his heroes, and I'm experiencing that later in life, of course, but it just it's kind of it's awesome. It's nothing short of awesome for me. But now it is more of a job, and I'm getting over that. They're still my heroes, but they're also becoming friends, and I'm looking at them more as competitors instead of the intimidation factor. So that's going away, which is good. So now it's more getting back to focusing on my deficiencies. This last year was a good trial I've had more time with the job change, getting out of law enforcement, and only working 2 days a week to where I can be fortunate enough to travel and make a lot more events. But
Mhm.
with that travel, I've given up a lot of my own training, my own practice at home because I'm always gone. So I don't really have a range, and it's not a structured training. And that's, it's not an excuse. It's just what it is. And so I've kind of tried to stay at that level, but haven't been able to address the deficiencies like I normally would in training. And I slept off. It's all on me. I've slept off. I could have done the dry fire to at least make up for some of that, but um, basically you just get home after all that travel, being gone for 2 weeks between work and traveling to a couple events, and then come home. I'm not really wanting to pick up the gun and dry fire. I want to spend time with the family. So it's kind of one of those things. Yeah. So this this year, 2023, was a good experiment, I guess. It's what I want to do. It's what I want to be able to do, but being spread too thin with going to as many matches as I was going to with my training. And really, I want to show up to a match and be there to win it, and have my skill level have that ability to win it, which I have the ability. But next year is going to be a little different. I think I'm going to be more selective in my majors, and
Mhm.
really focus on the training, like prioritize my time training prior to a major so that I can address my deficiencies, be more committed to my dry fire. I've already done a better job at that after IPSC Nats. Just kind of, I'm just not liking my performance.
Mhm.
It's simple as that. And I'm the only one who can fix that. So I've started making sure I'm dry firing at least every other day, And like I said before, it was like my outlet, and I was dry firing every day. I enjoyed it. And it's not, sometimes it's enjoyable, but sometimes it's not. But it's more or less because I haven't been as structured, and my deficiencies is like, okay, this dry fire, I need to work on this, my trigger control, and how I'm going to break that down. And then I will work on that, or my transitions, or whatever it is, whatever I think my deficiencies are. Or if I see something that somebody else is doing, that like, oh, that's a great drill. I'm excited. I'll do that, and a lot of times that's a big thing. Uh, for those watching, it's if you want to get better, find things. You have to work on your deficiencies, but try drills out, whether they look fun or not. Try them out, and whether it's stuff that I've shared or anything like that, or anybody. Because what I've learned is I'll try somebody else's drill. They're working on, let's say, transitions, right? Uh, and I'll be working the same drill they were doing, and during that drill, I will learn something other than transitions. I'll learn something about my trigger control or about my vision, and it's just funny how you'll learn something unintended doing a drill that's you know with a different intent, and that that can really be beneficial. So that kept it fun for me. So I'm going to
Mhm.
get back to that because I know that works for next year.
Right. And you kind of mentioned you're going to be a little more selective of majors. Is it the fact that you had too many on the schedule this year, or that they were too condensed either direction of this season?
Uh, kind of kind of both. I mean, I wouldn't say it's too many, but if it could be, that's the problem is there's so many good events,
Hmm.
and I have not been to outside of Area 1 and Area 2. This year was the first year I shot anything else outside of that or nationals.
Hmm.
This was my third, well, 20. So I've shot four. Well, if USPSA, I've shot four USPSA's nationals, and two of them were this year.
Hmm.
So, and then now one IPSC national, so five nationals. And what's kind of funny is after my second or third one, when I was super squatted, uh, talking to those guys, like asking Nils or Max or JJ, how many nationals have you shot? And and they've shot hundreds.
Mm-hmm.
They've shot just national events. If you didn't count any other match, just nationals, they've shot more nationals than I've shot events in my life. So it's
Right.
kind of like, wow. So I need to get more majors, and that's what this year was about, is trying to make as many majors as I can, and that can be difficult. It is difficult even if your job is just to shoot. It's still difficult to go one weekend in Arizona. Like my last two were one weekend in Arizona, the next weekend in Florida. So you're
Yeah.
traveling across the country uh, from one weekend to the next. So it can be very difficult. Try to fit training in between. So say you saw an issue that you were having in Arizona. Well, where's the training time between that and Florida? You got a day, a full day of flying. I had to go back to work for 2 days, and then I got a short training session with JJ and a few friends
Mm-hmm.
to try to address something, and it's just not going to happen. So you're just going to try to stay at that level as best you can, and then go into that. But the training should have been done prior to that, and so from going to one thing to another, they kind of stack up. So it's hard. You
Mm-hmm.
have to you, you have to have time to address those things, unless you're somebody like the Nils and the JJ, where they're pretty much at the top of their game all the time. And yeah, God bless those guys, because they're it's pretty amazing to watch them from week in, week out, just keep performing at the top level with even if their schedule's booked. So, but yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is. It's intense, probably, and in the pure fact of the matter is, it's like, they're good at what they do, but God, you got to be able to have a buffer, right? Like for you, you got the 5 kids and the wife at home. Super difficult, probably, to get time away to a major. It's like, like you said, back to back weekends. Arizona and Florida, like that's got to suck for you. Like, you got everyone at home who's like, when are you coming home? Or don't come home. We like the space without you.
it's tough. I'm so blessed in so many ways. So I can't really complain because I'm doing exactly what I love doing.
Hmm.
Even going to work, it's a short 48-hour shift, and it's enjoyable as well. So I don't have any complaints. It is tough though, because there's several times this year doing back-to-back weekends like that. I'm gone for 12 to 14 days straight from home,
Right.
because I'm going to work, flying to a match, flying back to work, flying to another match, flying back to work, and then coming home. So, or some form of that. So yeah, it's part of the sacrifice is what, and that's what this year was about for me, trying to trying to figure out what's feasible, what works, what doesn't, uh, and then address it for next year. And that's why I said next year it'll be more selective. It's going to happen next year, I'm sure, just the way the events are. I'm going to want to
Hmm.
go to two events that are going to be back to back like that, and the prep needs to be done ahead of time. So basically, what I'll have to do is clear out my schedule and maybe miss a level two that I normally would go to, that's closer, to really commit to the training to prep the way I need to prep. Because, like I said, been fortunate to have some good conversations with about training with like with JJ Nils, Mason Lane predominantly. Um,
Hmm.
how often do you train? How do you train, that sort of thing? And like Nils is the one who says that he'll shoot for something like nationals, or something he really wants that's really important to him, worlds, nationals. He will, for like a month prior, he'll shoot every day. But on other events, he's pretty much shooting at least every other day for the most part. I'm like, well, I don't have that option, but I can still dry fire every day, and
Hmm.
um, I can still get to the range at least once, if not twice a week. If I don't have a match, at least twice a week. So it's just a
Hmm.
matter of, and that's, I mean, ideally I would be able to do it more. I'd love to do it more, but that's just what I've got. So I think I can still make it work, because I've been able to do so in the past. This year just was a little different with the stacked schedule, and work and home life.
Yeah, and there's got to be that work home life, sport balance. It seems like, right? Nothing's ever going to be ideal or perfect, but we got to make the best that we can.
Yeah, exactly. And the cream always rises to the top. So it doesn't matter what you know the potential is, I guess, what your potential ability is you've got to do the work. If you want to be the best at anything, you're going to have to outwork your competitors, and you're going
Hmm.
to have hardships. Everybody's got them, so I'm no different than anybody else. It's just figuring out how to manage that and still do what I need to do to outwork these guys. So that's my plan next year.
Right
Hopefully,
now,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I just say so. The other thing is playing around with like my weight with lifting and stuff. So next year, you're going to see a little more leaner. Uh, that's body type.
Hmm.
I I I'm fortunate. I kind of store whether it's fat or muscle. I can gain weight no problem. So I walk around 230 normally. Uh, but my best during my best performances, it was probably in the academy. Basically, the weight wise, moving around comfortably was is right around 205. So
Hmm.
I haven't been under 200 since high school. And it's not that I'm not a tall guy. I'm just my mom used to call me husky. I'm husky, but
Yeah, but
that's my body type. I hold weight a little bit more um, than most. I think like JJ was he's at 160 at CO Nats. I'm like, holy smokes, 160. Jeez. Yeah, but yeah,
yeah.
if it'll definitely be helpful to get down to like, well, like I've been before around 205. I move definitely differently. It's like it's a big difference trying to start. I was talking to Shane Coley at Ipsic Nats. We both had to have the same match.
Hmm.
We were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I like to lift weights, um, and that makes you hungry, and I like to eat. And I think we're similar. We were saying how similar we are, and we're both above the weight where we can maximize our performance as far as like maneuvering and stuff. And it definitely affects stability to getting this thing going. It's hard to stop that train, come into a port or something, getting low and getting out. It equates to a little bit more time, and that can be changed just by simply dropping 20 pounds, 30 pounds.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely here nor there. You can definitely move or gain a little bit of it. But it's always funny to see you and Shane Coley when you're with each other. You got to take a picture, right? Because
Yeah.
at some point you could always, if you grew the beard out a little bit more, you could like, look at me, I'm Shane Coley, everybody.
So what's funny about that? I met him in person. It was in Washington at Area One. I can't remember the year. I'm bad with years and dates, but anyways, it was Area One when it was in Washington. And my buddy that I shoot with, Ron Hildebrand,
Hmm.
he is he was a Glock guy, and he still is, but he shoots an Atlas now, 2011. He's shot limited. He was production, and
Hmm.
then he was the local guy. He was one of them. And we got some good shooters, and he was one of the guys I was chasing when I was first starting out. And man, nobody splits like that guy. Even with a Glock, he still splits faster than I do. And now, even with an Atlas, it's incredible to see. But he's a Glock guy, so his guy was Shane Coley. My guy at the time was Max Michelle because I was watching Hot Shots, and
Hmm.
we all have our guys, right?
Hmm.
And he uh, he'd always talk about Shane Coley. So then when I met him, I was like, hey, we were actually squatted together. And I goes, hey Shane, I got to get a picture with you for my buddy. He probably thought I was lying because he gets, people take pictures with him all the time. But so I tagged him, and I always troll my. It's all to troll him. He knows now. He knows the drill as soon as he sees me. He's like, oh yeah, we got to get that picture. Because we've been doing it for a few years now. But it's that's how it all started. We do it basically to troll my buddy Ron.
So it's funny you mentioned Ron. So Ron submitted a question for you. So I got to ask you. So who shot your banner?
Yeah, so yeah, oh, good. He's asking questions. All right, yeah. So yeah, when I do on our local matches, like when I build stages, I've got like these banners behind me, gray guns
Mhm.
and howitzer, and I put banners up. So I had probably something like this one. I've got a couple of them, and he's going through. It's a funny story because he was. I don't know how much he wants to divulge, but he asked the question. So
Mhm.
we got another guy that shoots with us, and something happened with a popper, and it was a little, local, buddy. We're all really close, so we just give each other shit all the time. When we shoot our locals match, it's constant, right? Before you shoot, it's like, hey, don't fuck up, stand by, you know. And anyways, so one of our mutual friends was getting under his skin, so he was not happy with the stage, and it was a stage I built, so I had my banners up, and anyways, he started shooting, and he had a hell of a time. He screwed something up, or I think it was that's what it was. It was the popper that our mutual friend adjusted, and it didn't go down, and then he shot it again, and then he had to go back to shoot it, and so he was pissed because it was adjusted before he shot, and so he ended up going through, and while he just saw my banner, and he's just boom, point shoots it real quick on his way to the next target. And it's funny is it was out of anger. I don't care, whatever, you know. But oh, here it is. So you see that little red dot,
Mhm.
right? He put it like dead center in that red dot, and he's shooting irons, and he was like running by this thing, and he just goes boom, and then goes to the next spot. So it was actually pretty impressive.
Mhm.
But yeah, he bought me a new banner. He had a new one made. I was
Did he
like,
take Did he take that one home as a victory trophy?
he did.
He's like, I shot it, I bought it.
Yeah, he sure did. Yep, he kept that one and got me a new one. But yeah, it was yeah.
Mhm.
Local matches are definitely they're fun. They're different than the majors for sure. Local there's like I don't know what to do if I'm not getting razzed the whole time.
Right, exactly. But what was your so looking back at 23? What was the match that you found most rewarding? What major match?
Oh, let's see. Getting cold in my garage. Sorry.
Oh,
Uh,
it gets cold in California.
Cold for me. It's like it's probably only 50 degrees out. Maybe in the 40, low high 40s. No, it's that so cold for me. Let's see. Man, I shot for me. I shot so many. Let me think back. Give me one. Hmm. I mean, it's hard to say. It's easy to say one that you won was rewarding. Well, I guess that is the most rewarding. We have a local uh, level 2 every year called the Golden Bullet,
Hmm.
uh, and that one was it was I'd won 4 years in a row for carry optics, and so that one it was kind of a I guess it just started out the traveling. It was the beginning of the year kind of. Um, I think I'd already shot one level 2. The Roadrunner I shot already prior to that, and I was fortunate to get that one. But that was a good one. Um, but it was more because it was like the can I go 5 in a row? Because there's a lot of that thing fills up. There's a lot of shooters at that one, and a lot of there are good shooters that don't necessarily make it to the majors,
Hmm.
and so it's like every year in the last 5 years in a row, I've been able to kind of reach another level, like level up for that, and just kind of squeak it out. You know what I mean? Because I got a lot of guys that have been, now that I've been winning it for the last 5 years, a lot of guys that are chasing and want, it's going to happen sooner or later where one of them is going to get me, right? So it's going to be really good for them, bad for me, but it's kind of cool to see how long can I run this.
Hmm.
So I would say that probably felt the best because of a win. But I think if it's the most, I don't know, as far as the match goes, that would be the best. But I think Optic National, the most memorable for me, would be this year's Optic Nationals because of the fact that the Bill Drill Challenge was it was the first kind of Shooting USA one. So that was the competition mixed with my kind of a duty to be the ringer, right?
Hmm.
So that one was the most. I guess that's most memorable, just for the simple fact where I'm going as the ringer uh, against whoever qualifies, which wasn't a surprise to me. Billy Martin uh,
Hmm.
was the challenger. So that was the most. It was just kind of surreal because it kind of going back to what I've talked about earlier, shooting with these top guys, being able to compete with them, and then having them come to a what do you want to do? I guess it's a show. It's a kind of a skill designed around something that like I'm the feature of, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And it's being filmed by Shooting USA, and my heroes are coming over to participate in what felt like, kind of like my show. you know, it was just like I said, I just felt very humbled, and it was surreal. I was living in the moment for sure. Of course, I lost it,
Hmm.
but and that's just is what it is. Billy did all the things right. Um, he did what he needed to do, and he showed up. And I didn't. I didn't. I think I was a little too in the moment. I did take the time to go warm up prior, so I hadn't touched my gun in 6 hours, and just get mic'd up, called to the line, and there we go. We're recording. So,
Hmm.
but that was still, in the moment, I had all the belief that I was gonna, make it happen, and it didn't work out. But still, that was such a cool experience regardless. Even losing, it was still just wow. I'm here. I got, all the guys I look up to there. You got Billy there, who's, have you got you've seen Billy stuff, right?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And it's just being able to compete at the highest level of even this small portion of shooting, but on it, being kind of like the feature of that. And that was the other thing. In the registration, they have the Bill Drill Challenge. They have this whole thing listed out, and they've got my name on it and everything, and I'm a part of USPSA history. So, and I was feeling that the whole time. So it was pressure, but at the same time, it was just like I said, humbling and kind of surreal. Whereas like I remember watching the show a short time ago and looking at these other guys that are all features and history, creating USPSA history and competition shooting history, and now I'm part of it. So I definitely recognize that fact, which may or may not have hurt me, when it comes to actual shooting. But that's just something I got to get used to because I plan on I plan on being around.
Hmm.
So that'll start to fade, that kind of that honeymoon phase, and then I can, you know, I'm already seeing it where I'm not as nervous as I was. I'm controlling that, and I'm getting more in tune with what I need to do, and executing it. The problem this year is, like I said, just my training was not where it needs to be, uh, but I'll rectify that.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and you can only go up and onward from here, right? You're already a top level GM. You're already performing in that top 20. Well, even limited optics nationals, what you were. I can't even remember the placement. I'm blanking right now.
It was 20 something. I've taken a couple 20 something places this year. I think it was same at CO Nats, Limited, and IPSC Nats. It's all been in the 20s. So I definitely slipped back to where I should be for sure. But that's no one's fault but my own. But yeah, but it's still, when I look at it, it's just these little things that I could fix that would get me into that top 10. And then
Hmm.
a few more little things, mistakes that would get me into that top 5, and
Right.
actually have a legitimate chance at the
Hmm.
overall. So and that's all it is. I mean, it's not just me. There's there's at least 30 guys that could say the same thing.
Right, exactly. And that what it comes down, you're upward and onward, you're gonna go to the top, you're gonna be, you're fighting with your idols or your heroes, they're your rivals at this point, and you're there to duke it out on the field of battle, called the USPSA or IPSC stage, it seems like. But um no, but it's definitely cool to see the progression. I mean, as you've talked through this whole thing, it's kind of showing, you can come from nothing or a little bit of a hobbyist to becoming a true competitor. So
Yeah,
it's the average man or the average person in this sport shouldn't be discouraged about it, because that could be them. They just need to have the dedication, and the means to do so. And
absolutely. Yeah, even if you don't have minimal ammo, that's a tough thing. I mean, that's what I'm working on right now, securing ammo for next year, uh,
hmm
for training purposes, to do what I want to do to be ready to shoot bill drill challenges. Um, as that progresses,
hmm
that's going to take extra ammo just for that skill that is got to be separate from my USPSA training ammo. So
hmm
trying to work on that now is crucial. But even if with minimal ammo, what I'm seeing is the one of the bigger things, uh, setbacks that I've learned from this year, is dry fire. Is That's where you can build most of your skills in dry fire, uh, and then you confirm them in your live fire training, and
hmm
then you test those skills under pressure in your competition. And those are kind of like the 3 steps that you go through when you're training, or when you're getting, progressing. So dry fire is a huge key, and that's kind of what I'm going to revert back to. That's really what got me the fast draw. I mean, that's what got me the 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 base of all my fundamentals, and getting those fundamentals, those skills at a high level. It all came from the dry fire practice I was putting in, and then I would take it to live fire. But you know, I could, you can't. I'm not doing thousands of reps in live fire. I'm doing thousands of reps in dry fire first. Then I'm taking it to live fire and just doing dozens, you
hmm
know, and then you take that to a match, and you do several in a match, and you're just testing it under pressure. So, and it's creating ways that you can add that pressure in your dry fire, in your live fire, that mimics what you see and feel in a match. And that's kind of that next level training. So I think a lot of people, even great shooters, great, that are GMs, that are missing out on that upper level, is probably because the, the inability to apply that extra pressure. They're too comfortable in their training.
hmm
Uh, so when they go to a major match, or they're too comfortable in their locals, and when they go to a major match, that pressure gets to them. So
hmm
but it's all great. Realistically, um, kind of in the grand scheme of things, it's, regardless of the outcome, it's such a great experience just being a part of it all. It's great people, no matter what level you're on. Get out shooting and enjoy the people you're around, because chances are they're some of the best people you'll end up knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of my best friends, I've met through this sport, right? They don't live anywhere near me, but they're some of my best friends, right?
Yeah, right.
That- And then that's the ones you're talking to all the time. You're always the one razzing or whatnot, but it's always a good time. But yeah.
That's right.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So Isaac, this is like or the part of the show where I like to help, support, show people love that show you love, right? So this is kind of where I let you really pimp the sponsors out, and kind of give them their golden nugget, I guess, at the end of this, right?
I've certainly got a lot of them. I wouldn't be in this sport if I didn't have uh, the support I do have. So, uh, and as far as shooting goes, like I mentioned before, my buddy Mike with the Carter family, uh, he's been keeping me up on ammo my entire career, keeping me training and for practice for matches, and then Ely ammo is that's what I've been shooting all year this year, most of the year this year, for all my majors, and that's been great ammo. So they've been great. Obviously, gray guns. I mean, I got the gun right here, my limited optics gun, with the Lockwood slide that they're doing, tailor made to what I wanted to see, and it's it's awesome. Anybody who shot, let's just put it this way, outside of my opinion, anybody who's shot a gray gun's upper, whether it's the Lockwood or anything else they do, it's unanimous. It's the performance is top notch. The feel is different. It's not just a 320. Um, it it feels like a 320, but it shoots completely different in a good way. Uh, so Henning Group, obviously, Henning's been a great supporter for me. Uh, Precision holsters, they provided me with holsters and mag pouches. Howitzer's been a huge one this year. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the commercial, and then the support that they brought into USPSA as well, and supported the Bill Drill Challenge. Hollow Sun Optics, they've been awesome providing me with optics this year, and then going forward. Shooters World Powder, um, again, part of the process of keeping me training.
Hmm.
Springer Precision, I got the Springer Precision magwells. They're awesome. The brass, it adds that weight in the hand, so I'm loving it for limited optics. Align Tactical, so the little controversial gas pedal, not in LO but in carry optics.
Hmm.
That little gas pedal, I use it for just mainly an index, but I also this doesn't have it, but my TXG lowers has the mag release that I just prefer. I know I'm missing some. Let me look around. Let's see. Um, oh man, there's been so much support. It's Jerky. That's a local jerky company, but they ship everywhere. They're in a lot of different states. I don't remember how many. It's every time I talk to him, he's in like at least half the states by now, across the country. Um, but yeah, I I'm sure I'm missing a few, and I apologize, but yeah, I couldn't do it without the support of sponsors and getting me to these places and having the ability to do something I love to do.
And it is really cool, they show you the support, you show the support back, being a great ambassador for the sport and these companies. It's always good to see. But Isaac, if people really wanted to get in touch with you, talk more about getting better at shooting, or your kind of your history, your past, your future. What's the best way for them to reach you?
So obviously, social media. People reach out to me on that. If you're interested in more training stuff, I've got a Patreon account. I have a YouTube account as well. That's free information that's out there. I haven't put the in-depth stuff is going to be on Patreon going forward.
Hmm.
It's kind of a way to fund my travel essentially, or that's the goal. And then YouTube has just information that I've learned up until essentially this year. And I still
Hmm.
just put match videos. But if they want to get a hold of me, obviously social media is the easiest way. Just message me, and then see what they're trying, what they whatever they want to know. I respond to everybody.
Gotcha. No, that's good. Yep. So people, if you want to reach out to Isaac, reach him out on his social media, follow him on YouTube, and join his Patreon. But Isaac, brother, thank you for your time tonight. It's been a blast. I've learned a lot. We've had a great conversation. So I really want to do thank you for your time away from your family and your hectic life. So
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, they've been good. They stayed out of my garage, so
Right? The
I
one time,
appreciate it.
right?
Yeah, right. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Isaac. And to the listeners, get out and do the things. I will see you on the next one.